Oh good lord, we're at the home stretch. Don't get me wrong, I wanted to talk about these games for quite some time now, but lord, I was getting really burnt out. I'm starting to believe marathons aren't my kind of thing. We'll get back to that conversation later, I got a lot to talk about. But first, we gotta get to the main subject of the video.
Now, before we start, I have to stress, since this is a new game, I'm gonna have to say there are gonna be spoilers in this video. There aren't gonna be too many until the end, but if you don't want to be spoiled, I'm just going to have to say, it's a fine enough game. I don't think it's worth the $30 price tag at the moment, but it's a fine game. It has its issues, so if you like the previous games, you'll like it fine.
Shantae and her friends fly over to Arena Town for her first ever vacation and talks with the mayor about a festival he's created to celebrate Half-Genies. Yep, Shantae isn't the only one of her kind, as 5 other girls are participating as well. But during the dance rehearsal, the girls are taken away, leaving Shantae to go rescue them, despite her friends and the mayor's disapproval. Saving the other Half-Genies is very much like how the first game handled it. By freeing them, they give you a transformation to help you out on your journey, which work very differently than before, but we'll talk about that later. Once you take out one of the Sirens, the first girl you rescue, Plink, tells you that they can temporarily transfer their own magic to Shantae, so that they can overturn the Sirens and save the island. In order to do such, they need fusion stones, which Shantae will need to locate around the island. You also meet a lot of colorful characters along the way, including these 3 scientists that nearly killed themselves and Shantae for science. Well, actually it was Squid Baron's doing, surprise surprise, who also talks a lot of gibberish about making a game and such.
This is dumb.
Yeah, no arguments there. You also meet another Baron, Armor Baron, who is also a little shit because if the last 3 games haven't taught us anything, you do not trust a Baron, especially since this ass is related to the most obnoxious of the 4. My favorite though is definitely Harmony, one of the Half-Genies. She's really calm and certainly the wisest of the bunch. She even helps us by helping out Tops, who is actually disguising herself so she can be with Shantae, even if Shantae was going to invite her anyway. Also saw that twist a mile away, considering the promotional artwork actually shows Tops and not Philin, or Ima as Harmony known her as. I don't want to say the other girls are bad, but they're rarely explored. I want to learn more about these girls, I want to know how they react to the world around them. And we almost get something of the sort with Zapple here, where it seems like she's hesitant to help Shantae, but she gives us her power just because the other 2 did. So it leaves me wanting more by the end of it. Why Harmony works so well is that, because she is the eldest, she knows more about how the Half-Genies work. She even has a scrapbook given to her by their mothers, and it gives us some of Harmony's personality. I just wish the rest had a little more as well. That said, the dialogue and charm is here and accounted for. No matter what qualities these games shell out, they'll never skimp out on the writing, as well as the expressive character portraits. I also didn't mention this last time, but since then they actually started doing voice acting. At least with Shantae, though they didn't really put much into it back then. This game has more of it, certainly, but they still insist on only voicing certain lines, while also doing small grunts and phases for other lines, or just simply keeping them silent. It wouldn't be much of an issue if they were separate instances, but they do all 3 of those things in the same conversations, more so during important ones. What makes it more annoying is that, for the first time ever, this game has animated cutscenes, which are great, giving off that wonderful anime-esque charm. But it makes me wonder if they put more effort into these rather than putting in 110% in the voice acting. Because of that, it feels like the presentation wasn't focused properly, and all that really disconnects me from the world the game is trying to convey. If you ask me, they should have focused more on the voice acting, and if they really wanted to make the animated cutscenes, they should have just made them for the more important scenes. It would have also given the Sirens a little more back and forth as well. 5 out of the 7 Sirens do not converse with Shantae, and I know they can talk perfectly, as during the battles you can hear them taunting Shantae. Well, 2 of them do, and the Elder Siren does talk to Shantae when Risky is revealed to be the true mastermind. Yeah, what a shocker. I'll get to that later, but the Sirens really don't feel all that threatening. They just kind of existed. Also evident in the boss battles, because holy shit were most of these fights pathetic. There are several reasons for that. One was the fact that the patterns were super telegraphed, and some of them even stood still for most of their fights, making them easy pickings. The second reason is the health drops during the game. I don't know what happened, but enemies in this game drop so much food, so much to a point where the challenge in the game kinda doesn't exist. I'll get to that more in a second. The final reason isn't really the bosses themselves, but rather what accompanies them, and that's the music. Jake Kaufman didn't return for this soundtrack, instead these guys made the soundtrack. Never heard any of them, had to do some research, and yeah, none of their works really rang a bell. And I'm gonna be a little critical here, they don't really compare to Kaufman. I mean, the atmospheric pieces are really good, and some of the town themes are really great on the ears. but some of the tracks do not fit well. The boss battle theme, for example, is very triumphant and cheerful, good for a final boss, I guess, but for traditional boss music? You compare this to earlier games, which had the same song, mind you, it was intense, making the bosses feel like a threat. Here, it's just way too soft, making them feel more like obstacles rather than full-on villains. This one dungeon theme got on my nerves too. They're trying to be grungy and harsh, which would fit the volcanic environment, but the guitar and synth just sounded chaotic. It was hurting my ears after a while. Definitely needed a quieter melody in the middle. The last one that stuck out to me was the second ship. I thought it was going to be pretty eerie like the rest of the underground areas, and also to compare with Super Metroid and the abandoned ship in that game. But no, it's all techno, high-energy music, and I mean, I love techno, but does this really fit an abandoned ship? Also, whenever I hear this song, I always think of Rasputin from Money B. I can't be the only person. I guess the lab kind of fits this issue as well, but it felt atmospheric enough to where it didn't really feel out of place. Plus, it also fit the techno instruments a little better considering it's a laboratory. It's not a horrible soundtrack altogether, especially if you take it out of the game and rate it on its own, but as a companion piece, it's very hit and miss. And to end out the presentation tangent, we need to talk about the backgrounds. They used 3D models in Half-Genie Hero, but they decided to go for a hand-drawn style for this game instead, and I think they look absolutely gorgeous, especially when you're in the water areas. If they keep this style in the future, I cannot complain. This just looks great.
Okay, now let's talk about the gameplay. It's pretty standard. She can whip her hair, she can use items from the shop, she can transform into animals by dancing.
Not this time, me.
Wait, what?
In 7 Sirens, the animal transformations are now mapped to specific buttons rather than waiting for a specific transformation. I like this change quite a lot. It's a wonderful evolution to this mechanic. What I don't care for are the transformations themselves. Well, I do like the newt and tortoise. The former works just like the monkeys, so there's no complaints there. And the tortoise has elements of the elephant like stomping and dashing, though this time it's much faster and lasts as long as you want, though using caution is highly recommended. The gastro drill and sea frog work identically, only the drill works in the dirt and the frog works in the water. I would have heavily preferred more freedom with these transformations. The way the environment is structured makes them feel very stiff, and control can be delayed at points because of it. Full 360-degree movement would have felt a lot better. Hell, in the last game, the crab and mermaid did just that. Lastly, you get the jet octo from Roddy Tops, which kinda works like the cannon in Pirate's Curse, only you jump 3 times instead of 4. It's fine, but it really makes me miss the harpy. Oh well. The transformations this time are a little hit and miss, but those aren't your only means of magic. Like I said earlier, the other half-genies will transfer their magic to Shantae, and I'm sorry to say, these skills kinda suck. Talk about the most situational power-ups out there. They only exist for light puzzle solving or collecting gold nuggets and the returning heart squids. You could use the spark and quake magic on enemies, but I really wouldn't recommend that. Time doesn't slow down when you're using these spells, so using them for battle is not recommended, unless you have ways of defending yourself. Yeah, you still have the ability to whip, but the newt dash and tortoise spin deal some good damage while also making you invisible during the attacks. Items return, of course, with some new toys to play with, though I hardly use them. In fact, I hardly used any of the items, not even my personal favorites like the pipe balls and flamethrower. I did use the reflect shield the most though, mostly with enemies that use homing attacks or like to spam a lot of bullets. With the abundance of food items, running out of magic is really hard to do unless you really go crazy. You may have noticed that I only had 3 hearts during the game. That's because it was the only way of giving me some sort of challenge. Okay, at first I forgot to exchange them, but if I didn't have that, the game would have probably bored me by the second session. The new card system can also break your game in 2 as well. You collect cards by attacking enemies or selling your gold nuggets for specific cards. I've only found 4 people that actually sold me these cards, and I'm not sure if they sell more or if there are other NPCs to talk to. Getting certain cards is also a problem since enemy cards are random, and I swear some of them have an extremely low spawn rate. On my first playthrough, I had the hardest time getting this asshole's card, but while recording, I got it on my first encounter, only to learn that it's a buff for the Super Ball, the worst weapon in the game. Fascinating. I like the card system as a concept, but it doesn't complement the game's difficulty or Shantae's abilities in the long term. And I really wish there were a marker system. I wasted so much time exploring this place trying to find the remaining squids and nuggets, and I wasn't even close to finishing the squids, and I'm not even sure about the nuggets. Going for 100% is incredibly exhausting because of that, and going through the game casually is just unfulfilling.
I spoiled a little bit of it earlier, but if you don't want full details, let's continue.
Shantae finds Risky in the control room of the ship, ready to release the power siphon so that the ship can fly again. Despite Shantae's efforts to take them out, the ship soars into the sky ready to destroy the island and everyone on it. The lobster girl from before hops in and helps Shantae teleport to the ship, where Shantae finds the mayor, who turns out to be Risky all along? Risky tells the 7th Siren that the genies are hers to siphon, but the Siren backstabs her by siphoning her life force as well. With her new power, she unleashes her Siren army to destroy the island. But unfortunately for her, we have some new powers as well. With one last final battle, Shantae takes out the 7th Siren with the help of the Half-Genies, as well as Ride-Top's life force poisoning her. That's what you get for being a bitch. She quickly dies, Shantae locates Risky, and everyone says their goodbyes, with Harmony gifting Shantae the genie's scrapbook. It's a very nice ending, even with the catfight in the back.
And at the moment, that's all the games. We'll just have to wait until the next game comes out. Aaron Bozon actually expressed some interest in the Shantae animated series, so if that comes into fruition, I actually can't wait. That actually has a lot of promise. As for what I would do for a sequel, well, the first thing I would do is bump up the difficulty. This game was way too easy, kind of like Half-Genie Hero, and I thought Pirate's Curse kind of balanced it a little bit, but because Pirate's Curse kind of balanced it a little bit, I think they can do that fine. And they also need to show off the personalities of the new characters, and if these characters ever do come back, and I really hope they do, they really need to build upon what they have currently. The card system needs to be balanced a little more, the bosses need to be a little more interesting, though in Pirate's Curse and even Half-Genie Hero, they actually were kind of fun, so I don't see how they can't really do that again. But of course, the one thing they need to do next time is just have full voice acting. If you're not going to go the full extra mile, don't even bother. I don't mind if you do it for full animated cutscenes next time, but if you're gonna have the full voice acting just in normal conversation, just have them voice all the lines, not just have them voice partial lines, and that's it.
Also completely forgot to mention that despite the fact that the intro shows off Sky, Bolo, Ride-Tops, and a Mimic attacking, you cannot play as these characters in the game. That is like false advertising right there. I was really excited to play as Mimic here, but no, they just had to be dicks, didn't they?
And we're done with Shantae. So right now, I actually have a few things I want to talk about. First off, I'm really getting sick of doing these kind of marathon kind of things. I kind of just did it because I was kind of inspired by Some Call Me Johnny, and I think he kind of does them a little better. I kind of want to just do a little more experimenting. Now, I say that, and I'm still going to try and do the Pikmin series. I only did the first game. I need to do 2, 3, maybe 8 Pikmin later down the road. And I really need to do those. And I got a special month planned for September. Really looking forward to that. And I just got a lot of individual videos that I want to do. A lot of experimental stuff. Like when the new Crash game, I want to kind of just compare Wrath of Cortex to Crash 4. Because I haven't done Wrath of Cortex. I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I just haven't gotten to it. And I think that would be the perfect time to talk about it. I also want to do more videos about movies and animated series because Pac-Man did very well, and I just love how that turned out. So I want to do a few more videos like that. So yeah, no more back-to-back videos, no more marathons. We're just going to do more individual stuff. So next time, I am finally going to talk about Pikmin 2.